Okay, I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order at 7:12.
Okay.
And I will start by doing a roll call. Kiana Tribune,
Present.
Esther Boyd,
Here.
Brian Poole,
I'm present.
Mayor.
Just only those that's on the committee.
Oh, well, there's those three then.
And then just make a note of the other members present, other people present.
So we have Brian Poole that's present, Rosemary Brown, Tim Engel, Ashley Madden and Charles, Jerry.
And Jerry.
Mhm.
Very well.
Mr. Mayor, do you have any comments?
No, Madam Chair, no. You can move forward.
Okay, so we'll start with the agenda item. First item on the list, we will discuss the income tax update from Charles Willis, asking for revenue year-to-date and monthly, and any outstanding returns and filings and estimated due date, with the date being pushed back to extended to July 15th of 2020. So we'll start with the revenue year-to-date and monthly. If you could share that with us, please.
Is he talking?
I
Yeah, he is.
don't hear anything.
Can't hear.
Ashley, you might want to check the volume. You're unable to hear anything. Ashley, we're still unable to hear, just so you know.
While we're waiting for that, Josh from ICRC, Charles's last name is Willis.
Right, I'm sorry, I said Willis.
Yeah, but it shows on the screen Lewis.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Josh.
Can you guys hear us?
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Okay. I sent 5 reports to your email. 2 of
You
them
go over
are,
those briefly with the team.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Ms. Pam?
Yes, I was just asking, could you go over those briefly with the team?
Yes. So we have a March report for 2020. We have a first quarter for 2020. We have a first quarter for 2019, and we have a March report for 2019 as well. So I'll begin with the March 2020 report. That shows our income for $450,000 for the month of March in 2020. That's down from 2019, March of 2019, if you see that. We are already seeing the impact of the pandemic that we're in. Our quarterly report for March for 2020, our quarterly report, the first 3 months for 2020, it is up over the same time last year. That amount being $1.4 million compared to $1.2 million for 2019 first quarter. April is going to be very telling. Of course, there are some gains in some areas, and then some pushback or some decreases due to the pandemic that we're facing right now. So we're very interested in to see how April is going to look. We're looking at that on a daily basis. The fifth report that was sent out shows the total amount that we collected in 2019 for the road levy and the amount that we've collected each month of the new year, 2020. $190,000 has been collected so far for 2020 for the road levy.
Can you say that figure one more time, please, Charles? You said for 2020, how much?
For 2020, so far, we've collected $190,818. I'll give the monthly breakdown now. For January of 2020, we collected $65,952 for the road levy. For February, $66,452 for the road levy. And for March of 2020, we've collected $58,414.
Okay.
That total for the first quarter being $190,818. So when we add that to what was collected for 2019, the grand total was right around $838,000 for everything collected thus far for the road levy.
And we haven't spent any of that money yet for the road levy?
To my understanding, we have not.
And Jerry, while we're on the road levy real quick, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, Jerry, is where are we in terms of, when we talk about road levy, in terms of Shady Lane, especially?
This is Jerry. We have the two bids out for Riddle, the second part of Riddle Road Phase 2 and for Shady Lane. So those two projects we're waiting for the bids. We kind of pushed the bid results back because of all this, but we are expecting those to be in. I'll have to confirm with our engineer when we're going to have those. And we have a couple other that Tony has informed me of, some emergency projects that we might have to do through the road levy, but they're going to be your $20,000 to $50,000 projects. So.
Pam, may I say something?
Yes.
Speaking of the road levy, Shady Lane, I got a call from a resident. And are you going to be in the office tomorrow, Jerry?
I will be for part of the day, yes.
Okay. Concerned about the bid that went out for Shady, thinking basically that it was not what we had agreed to do. So.
I don't know who you spoke to.
Mr. Knox, Peter Knox. Well, back when we had the meeting, and we can go into this.
You can meet with me tomorrow. Call me in the morning and we can meet, because the bid we went out was, there was two options, and we are doing the wider of the two streets.
Correct.
Widening the street, and then at the meeting the last meeting that we had, when the residents was there was the concern about the water line or something or another. And,
you have to go ahead.
And at that meeting, it was said, once we got they got into the digging, if it was determined that the water line was going to be an issue, that possibly could be taken care of.
Those are all private lines, from what I understand. And that, well, I'll talk to the engineers again.
I know we had done something like, was it 229,000? We had approved the number.
Well, if I recall, it was like 200 and something odd dollars, but I don't recall.
29,000, something like that.
That was the higher of the bids, which encountered the widening, making the
Correct.
street wider.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. And the stipulation that if something I can talk to Jerry tomorrow about it, about
Great.
water
Okay.
lines and everything.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. You can continue, Charles, if you have any more.
So what my point is, like I said, monthly, we are down in our revenue. Quarterly, we are ahead, we're up. So, like I said, April is going to be very telling to see how our collections are. That's pretty much all I have. Are there any other questions?
Charles, you may.
Go ahead.
Ms. Boyd. No, go ahead.
Okay, you're saying that April we were down. Do you think that has anything with them also extending the tax deadline to July?
We don't know if April is down at this point.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. But when did they extend that tax? When did they extend that tax date? Was it in February?
Yes.
So that could that possibly be one of the reasons?
That
Because
that
I
is-
haven't. Go
that-
ahead.
That is one of the reasons that
Okay.
right now.
Because I didn't file, man. I put mine aside when I heard. So a lot of people might have put it aside to wait till July. Mhm.
Yeah, a number of people have it, and you know,
Right.
wait on that. The new deadline is July 15th.
Right. That's when I'll see you.
Pam, can I interject something real quick on that?
Sure.
First of all, I received a revenue report from Hamilton County for all their income, and I think Tim may have seen the same thing. But you can see the first quarter of this year is basically on par, if not up. But when you look at their March numbers, they're down, just like we are.
Mhm.
Starting in April, we're going to start seeing a decline as long as second quarter and our quarter until the economy rebounds. So we're going to have to take some cautious approaches here as to what we're going to do. As it comes to income tax collection at the local level, I know one of my neighbors is a CPA and he's just working part-time for a firm. And he said he does a lot of business accounts, and he said the company he works for, there's well over 220 accounts that haven't even bothered filing anything because they know they have till July 15th.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of the income is going to be pushed back until really file.
Right.
Yeah. I expected that.
Yeah.
With the debt.
Yeah.
I hadn't
People
thought
are
about
holding
it.
on to their cash. Yeah.
Right. Right.
That, Madam Chair, I'm just sitting here thinking, and this is kind of to Tim and Jerry, and when we're thinking about talking about loss of revenue from the pandemic, that what it's caused, I know we had to do a small furlough, but do we think that we would get to another point in our financials, losing financials like that, where we'll have to come back to the table and have that conversation again? I'm hoping not, but I want to be real about it.
I'm hoping not as well, but right now, I don't have an answer for you. Like we said, when we did those furloughs, we would look at this in May and decide what we're going to do.
Correct.
Because I think by the time we get our April numbers, it'll be a little more
Clear.
knowing, and we'll have to make some decisions probably by May, if not sooner.
Gotcha. Okay. No worries.
Yeah, I think you almost have to take it day by day with all the changes that happen. You just don't really know at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it has a lot to do with what's happening and how soon things really open up and starts moving again. If it starts moving forward with any issue, without any issues, it might be okay. But if there starts to be more issues across the country, it might just be a downward spiral.
Yeah, that's what I'm so afraid of.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think when Charles and I talked about his reports, We thought perhaps the withholdings amounts that we look at or that we get in April might be a pretty good indicator of what might happen as we progress, because those amounts should be more or less live. So whatever we get in April is what we collected in May when all this kind of, sorry, what we collected in March when all of this kind of started.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
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 Good stuff. We'll keep an eye on it.
Thank you, Charles, for your reports. As usual, thank you. These reports have been awesome. Yours too, Tim. These have been awesome.
Is there any other comments on the income taxes, updates, or questions for Charles?
Not for Charles, just a general comment. For the reports, as long as we're doing the meetings as we're doing them, if we can just make sure that in any agenda items or agenda or reports or anything that's coming out that's going to be shared at the meeting could be sent out to all the council and done before the meeting starts.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I think some of it, Ms. Brown, is that we weren't quite sure how this was going to work. It started out, I know I sent an agenda out just for Tim and a small group, the committee members, to kind of look at. I wasn't sure if this was something that was going to be either picked up or sent out, distributed. So this is our first time really going through this. So going forward, we'll make sure that everything's communicated and everything goes out. It was just kind of like a trial and error for us.
Right.
Yeah, and that's my fault too. I went ahead and forwarded everything out to everybody on the committee. I didn't realize that Rosemary was going to be here. Otherwise, I'd have sent one out to her as well. So I will absolutely send those out to all of council in the future.
Yeah, and
It's no
myself too, 'cause I was the
fault.
one who
It's
instructed
no
as well.
fault. It's just trial and error, but I'm just bringing it, so we'll know the next time. Bringing it to
Right.
everybody's attention, that's all. No fault on nobody.
And as you look
Okay.
at the reports, please give any calls that you may have as you look at the reports going forward.
Okay.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no other questions, we'll move forward to payroll updates from Ashley. UAN update and some timeline if you have one.
I do. After Tim came along, and we were further discussing this in our finance department along with Jerry. At the present time, payroll switch to UAN has been determined to not be the best fit for the village at this time. I know our previous finance acting director was pushing for this to get it up and running. But after we further reviewed into it and understanding the steps to prepare for it, we determined that pretty much for the finance department right now, that would not best suit us to try to switch to a new program, especially right now preparing for the current audit. We are going to keep it on the table for us to review and continue to work on any of the steps that we will have to take and require for us to be UAN eventually on payroll. But for right now, it really was determined and understood that we are not prepared for the steps to make that switch.
So what happens to the data that has been switched so far? What happens with that? Because I know you were working on it.
We
Or
were.
it just goes on hold. You got two systems going on.
The fact that we do have two systems and trying to switch as late as we would, in the middle of a pay year, that will cause a lot of issues with just making sure between preparing for taxes when it comes to the payroll and any other issues that can occur if we don't run things right, if we don't get a chance to check the system as far as the server can handle everything from what we have now to making sure that we have it into this new platform. It wouldn't be a best fit for us to do that. Especially, like I said before, when it comes to payroll and people's pay, we do not want to be less prepared than what, going in and thinking we have everything and then turn around, we don't.
So I have a couple questions. So if it's delayed, it sounds like it's not scrapped, it's pretty much delayed. What's your vision, or Tim, the department's vision on that, or Jerry? And did we make some type of initial investment on this system, in this system? And I guess it would cost us some for a possible delay. Or what do you see for the future for this system?
I think I'll go to the first question, or the second question. I'll try to answer first. I don't believe there was any initial investment on the payroll side of UAN. It's a separate component of the program. In order to even open it up, you have to watch a specific training for me to even do it. To my knowledge, there was no initial investment in it, so we didn't lose any money on that end of it. In terms of when we may want to try to bring it in-house, certainly not this year. If you want to try to switch from one payroll system to another, I think you try to make the plan in 1 year, and the goal would be to go live at the beginning of the following year. That way, you have consistency within the year of those pay grids and those reports and everything else. If you do it in the middle of the year, it just tends to kind of mess things up. In terms of whether we want to bring it in-house or whether that's feasible for the village, it's hard for me to give a good timeline for that. It's almost a wait and see. We've kind of got a lot going on right now with the way the current audit is going, and with trying to find the records and get on top of everything else. I think once we kind of get a handle on that and see where we are, maybe we can kind of circle back to it and readdress it. But for right now, I think Paycor is what's best for us at the moment.
So is this something we probably could put later on in the year to try to revisit again, since it's not totally scrapped, right?
No, I wouldn't totally scrap it, but I think we can probably circle back to it later on.
Tim, can I?
Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
This is Jerry. Just quickly, Tim and I have had these discussions along with Ashley. We're not ready to move to UAN. There's too many unknowns. And one of the biggest unknowns is we move to UAN for our financials right now. We want to make sure that we have everything in our house under control, that we know the UAN system in and out, and that we get our final numbers from 18 and 19 so we know what adjustments have to be made, and we're comfortable where we're at with UAN. And then I think we can then look at moving to the payroll system. But I wouldn't push it until we know from the finance end we're comfortable.
Right. And I would think we can circle back to talking about it later on this year, but I probably wouldn't want to try to move over to UAN probably until honestly 2023 at the earliest, just to make sure we have a handle on everything, and like Jerry said, that we've got everything where we want it to be.
Really disappointing news to hear.
We couldn't hear you, Ms.
I mean, I can understand.
I just said that's really disappointing news to hear. 2023 especially.
Well, this is what I wanted to make understood in previous finance committee meetings. When we were determining trying to go to UAN, at least from my end of understanding what resources we had to make sure that we were prepared, all those resources weren't given to us. And therefore, I mean, that already started a wave if we were going to go in the right direction of what we need to make that switch. A lot of it had to do with making sure our taxes are filed correctly, where we're filing our taxes from our payroll, making sure that everything as far as deductions are entered correctly. We get a chance to run, dummy payrolls to be sure that it matches to what we use now. And that takes time. You want to make sure everything is seen through, toothpick and comb. You want to make sure that everything is processed correctly, even down to the payables for deductions. And the way we were going towards the end from our last finance meeting, it didn't look, and it still is not the best suit for us to go in that direction. So instead of forcing and rushing anything, that's basically where the decision came from, that we're simply not prepared for it.
That's just for the payroll side of UAN.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Everything else is on UAN. Am I understanding that correctly?
All of the accounting is on UAN. Our taxes are still processed through CMI.
Mm-hmm. So the information that we were getting, that 25% that you were saying that the payroll was done for UAN, that just really wasn't.
Oh, no, we were let's put it this way. Were being entered in, but I had someone in a position that didn't give all the resources to make sure that even with that 25%, that 25% is determined of entries of a person's name, address, if we're putting deduction codes and stuff in, but there is still a process side to making sure it's gonna work out just the same as what we're using now with our payroll system.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions on the payroll update? Okay, we'll move forward to the next agenda item, which is the finance update by Tim. And I asked him a couple different bullets here. I'll have him start with the LGS update timeline for completion for 2018-2019.
Right. I spoke with Rose. Actually, I spoke with her Monday, and I've spoken with her a couple more times this week. LGS has provided us some files that I'll look through again this week and try to complete for them. They have the 2018 report. For all intents and purposes, it's complete with a couple of notes items that I'm trying to work to get together. They have 2018 cash reconciliations completed. 2019 cash reconciliations are complete, but again, with some outstanding items that I'll need to go over and work with Rose to identify. I think we're currently on track to get our financial reports done and filed, certainly by the end of May. I think what's more likely, probably about the middle of May, I hope. At first, I thought I was going to have to ask for an extension on the audits, but with the COVID going on, the auditor's office has already extended the filing deadlines into June, so we should be okay on that. We won't get any citations for it. The LGS is going to go ahead and the report that they've put together, and this is very important, is an unclassified report. So if you can visualize a financial report, normally there are different revenue items. On an unclassified report, it's simply revenues and a number, expenditures and a number. Their goal is to make sure that all the money is basically there. This is what happens, unfortunately, when the accounting records are in such an order that they can't actually identify which expenditures should go to which line item and which revenue should go to which line item. Because the statements will be unclassified, the auditor's office will audit this as a non-GAGUS audit, which means that they're going to, they won't opine on the financial statements. It's disappointing, but at the same time, there's really nowhere else to go but up from there. So as far as 2020 and going forward, everything should work out fine. I'll be there. I'll make sure that the statements are correct for 2020 forward. You know, it's one of those things where we're kind of going to have to take the hit in 18 and 19 because of the way things are and the timeline that we have. Take their the issues and recommendations that they give us and just improve. Let's see. Let's say compilation status at the end of May. And then I think I'll stop there. Were there any questions on that until we move on to the next bullet point?
Do we have any idea how much longer we would need LGS's services? I think I recalled before that it was costing the village about $5,000. Was it a quarter? For their help on this. So I was just wondering how much longer will we have to continue paying these fees, or do we see any the end of the road somewhere to have this completed?
Those should stop in May. Those should stop in May.
And that's for 20, they should have 2018 and 2019 totally completed in May, sometime in May.
Yes, yes, I believe that would be true.
Does anybody know what it cost us? Did we get the figure on what it cost us for 16 and 17?
Or if LGS?
Huh?
You talking about LGS or just the?
LGS and the audit. Did we get that figure?
We can look that up.
I'll probably find it, yeah.
I thought it was 5,000 a quarter, but I could be wrong.
And I'm sorry, I'm having a brain freeze. We had the post audit for 16 and 17, right? Or did we?
Yes. Yep, you would have had the post audit for 16 and 17 sometime in 2018.
No, we had it in
No.
2019.
Oh, yeah,
No,
that's 19? Okay.
we did have it.
Now, when I came in July of last year, I remember the village was already under a contract with LGS
Right.
from 18 and 19. And I remember the initial cost was $15,000. And then, I mean, I want to say soon after, within a couple of weeks, they asked me to sign an acknowledgement letter that was extending their contract for another $5,000
Mm-hmm.
to do all of 19, because I don't think they were ready to do all of 19. So it's not a quarterly fee, but it's what we agree to based on their estimated hours. So that's my recollection of it. I don't know anything about 16 and 17 or 18.
I think those would be good numbers to know of how much this really costed us for their services. Just overall, once this is done, the total, even if it's 2017, 18, whatever it is, the total service for them, I'm sure it's been pretty costly.
Yeah.
Definitely have paid for that service.
Sure. And so to be clear, you would like to know how much we've paid LGS from 2017 through 2019, correct?
16,
Yes.
17.
Okay.
Just their total services, just to try to help us get back to some sort of normalcy.
Okay. I can get that for you.
And the
Okay.
cost for the 2016 and 17 audit.
Cost for the 2016 and 17 audit as well. Okay.
I can look back. I'll look back and see in my notes. I might have it. And I'll let you know. That way you won't have to worry about trying to look it up. Because I'm sitting here struggling, trying to remember, did we have the post audit for 16 and 17?
You would have had it. You know, the other thing I can do, the auditors have already contacted me. I can ask them what they charged us as well, and they'd be able to tell us.
Very well.
I think that's good information, because you never want to have that part of your budget, just, having somebody else do it. We know that we have some issues there, but it's just, sounds like very costly.
Yep.
Okay, the second thing I asked him for was a completion status on the 2020 budgets and the Hinkle report.
Right. So the Hinkle report is the financial report. So those will be filed within the Hinkle system as soon as they're completed by LGS. And after council has time to review that financial report, that should be presented to council, and they should be able to look through it and approve it. In terms of the budget, the 2020 budget, the permanent appropriations resolution was approved on 3/31 of 20. That was all entered into UAN. I reviewed and entered the revenue budget. That was the tax budget that Rick filed with the county auditor's office. as well as a couple other documents that came out of Hamilton County. The certificate of estimated resources was included in the email packet that I sent to everybody. That has been certified by the county auditor. That information has also been entered into UAN. There are a couple of issues with that certificate where we're showing certain funds that are over appropriated. We will go, I would recommend that we make corrections to those funds after LGS is done with their process. I don't have a lot of faith in the fund balances that we have at the beginning of 2020. So as soon as I know what the true fund balances are, I can go ahead and recommend any transfers or adjustments that need to be made to balance that out.
And if I can add, that appropriation ordinance that council adopted back at the end of March, again, it was based on not having 19's numbers and looking at history and trying to come up with what we believe was what reliable information we had from department directors to be able to put that appropriation ordinance together. And I told you there's going to be corrections to it because I knew it wasn't going to be a perfect document by no means. And with Tim here, he's already jumped into it. He's found some things that we need to look at, and hopefully we get our 19's numbers back. We can either come to council in May or June and make some appropriation adjustments. Something Tim and I will continue to talk about, make sure that we move forward in the right direction.
Yeah, I was looking at that, but I do have some questions. And one of them is I saw that there wasn't anything put in the budget for we're Tree City. Okay, and there was nothing put in the budget for that. And I had it here in front of me, and it's supposed to be so much per capita. And we had even put in a line item we created.
You said that was for tree trimming, Rosemary?
Not
Tree City USA.
Tree City USA. And it's so much per capita. And daggone it, I've moved all my paperwork around and I can't find it. But anyway, we created a fund for that.
What the UAN system, I will tell you, I think we put something in there. I have to go through it and find it. But if we don't, we'll make sure we do, because there is a requirement.
Yeah,
it's
right.
The population that you have so much per capita.
You're right.
Appropriated for that to remain a Tree City USA. So we'll make sure that we look at that and make sure we're there with that.
And that fund was created, and I moved my paperwork around, so I can't find the fund number right now, but the fund was created for that.
It was
Within the last year or two.
for $10,000.
Is that what it was, Ashley?
Yeah.
Do you remember the fund number?
No.
I got it here. I just have to find my paperwork. But that was one of the things I noticed. But
Okay. I'll look at that tomorrow and see if I can find it, and I'll email you and let you know what I find.
Okay, is there any other questions?
I would love to get some answers about recreation's budget. I really would, whenever we can get together and talk about it.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot we can do right now because we don't know what programs that we're going to be running or capable of running.
Right.
Revenue we expect.
Is Steve working on that? Has he gotten together with people in the city to see what they're doing? You know, like the Y, the Army Rec, Springdale.
We can.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I mean, I really don't see, and I could be wrong, but with all this virus and stuff going on, I don't see us having a concert series this year, possibly.
Oh, definitely not.
I don't even know about opening the swimming pool.
That's why I was saying, I was just interested in what everybody else is planning, or, you know, if they have ideas that they're coming up with. We may not be able to open, but I would like to be fair and see what other people are doing, and to see like Springdale, Wyoming, and the Y, so that we could see if we're able to implement something like that. We may not be able to, but I just don't want to dismiss it.
With all due respect,
Okay.
go ahead. I just do have one question about the swimming pool. If we don't open the swimming pool, are we on the line? I was reading through the contract and I don't think we are. Are we on the line to swim safe? For that, what is it, $96,000 or $98,000?
Yeah, $200-some thousand budget. 148.
It's 98 or 96 something like that.
98, I believe it is.
Yeah.
I don't have that number in front of me, but I will tell you this, knowing what's been going on, I reread our swim safe contract, even emailed our law director to say, Emily, if this continues on, I don't know what our out is to get out of this contract. And she goes, well, there is one. If the pool is closed so many days, you announce you're canceling your contract, because right now we owe them like $12,500. And I told Stephen, we're not paying it. I said, I will call the president of Swim Safe and say, hey, with all this going on, even sure if we're going to open our pool, and I would hate to be spending money for you preparing this pool, and then it's not going to even open.
I definitely agree.
Something, but I'm trying to cut our losses.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I am looking into that.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, Jerry.
Yes.
If we were to do that, if we were able to get out of that contract at 100%, could we look at possibly diverting that money, especially to maybe the play equipment for the smaller kids down there? We know we had a hefty price tag, over $100,000 to correct that down there. So that just something we could just put on our wish list, and perhaps Tim can give us some guidance on whether or not we can move on that for next year.
That would be, yeah.
Let me follow your question. You're saying if we close the pool all year, for swim safe money, put what we save toward replacing the splash park.
Right.
You're saying?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Or some sort, you know, I don't know if it's more costly to replace it. Is it more costly to totally replace them? What is it? Is it the water flow coming to these equipment? I don't know those particulars. I'm just saying that's something possibly we could look at.
Especially if we could get whoever to do it, if we were able to do that, if we could get them on that same pay schedule that Swim Safe would be on.
Team, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I just got a message from Steve. He wants you all to know that he has been in daily contact with the other recreation directors in surrounding communities. So he has been speaking to them about what the plans are.
That's great.
I'll forward more information to you about Swim Safe and where we need, what direction we want to go in here in the next few weeks.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. I think the next bullet point would be the return checks and duplicate payments, as long as everybody is satisfied with the budget.
Yes.
As far as I can tell right now, there do not seem to be any issues with duplicate payments and overpayments. Officer Forth has been doing a wonderful job helping out with payables.
So you're saying going forward, like,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
you're saying no duplicate payments going forward? Because I know the only reason I had put that on there is because I know that there was quite a few checks that were being returned from vendors, and I think we're up to at least 10. I looked at your report you sent and looked like there was quite a few that were voided out. I was assuming that those are probably some of the ones that were returned.
I would
So I
assume
was
so.
kind of concerned getting that many checks back in. Ashley might be able to weigh on this a little bit, getting that many checks back in and being returned. It was probably before you, so.
Yeah, that would be one thing I couldn't speak to as well. I can tell you that since I have been in office, I haven't seen anything like that. It seems like everything is being paid on time. I haven't been getting any calls about missing payments. I did receive one letter that showed we've had a credit of about $3,000, and I called the company to try to go ahead and have them send us a check for that credit. And they said they were in the process of doing that for us. But everything else, as far as I can tell, is being paid appropriately.
Okay, good.
From April anyway.
Ashley. So Ashley, have you seen any more? Because I know some of that was coming through the mail. I think when there was just a small timing issue before Tim started. Do you know of any other checks that have been possibly returned? Did that number continue to grow for those weeks that we didn't have anybody there? Do you know any information on that?
No, I will say pretty much since we've been moving forward and with Ford's help, pretty much anything that came in through the mail, it's been timely far as just regular invoices for him to pay out. There was an issue just recently, and it was my fault of a voided check, and that was due to a printing error. Other than that, there is no issue so far with going forward on paying invoices or any returns on invoices.
Ashley, don't take the blame for that. It's something that's going to happen, but it was nothing that was in March. So it was something that was in April where we had checks in the printer and somebody printed something out and printed it on a check. So if you see voided checks like that, that's going to occur every once in a while. We'll make sure we take better control of that too.
Yeah, and unfortunately, UAN, the checks are pre-numbered and you can't reprint them. So if there's a printing error, you have to void all those checks and then start over again.
So right now, Ms. Fitzgerald, pretty much what we've been seeing, like Tim said, is actually trying to catch anything that is possibly out there for credit versus us having to have any duplicates sent out or any duplicates being sent back into us.
Okay. Thanks. I think we had one more on the agenda. It was, we kind of spoke on this a little bit. Reports review from the appropriations, general fund, and the monthly expense reports.
Yes, so you ended up with a lot more detail in your packet, in your email than you'd have in the packet. So the email that I sent out to you will have all of the expenses for January, February, and March, every check that we wrote. And everybody can review that, take a look at it. If there are any questions, we can go over them. In the packet, I put together a very generalized spreadsheet for expenditures. At the end, the total expenditures from January through March of this year were $1,517,534.83. That's what we spent. Our receipts for that same period were $1,865,304.75. Currently, we've received $347,759 more than we spent, which is always positive. In terms of our budget, I went ahead and in your packets, I put together some what I would consider simplified budget versus actual reports. And I've itemized the appropriations and actual expenditures by fund. I think that's a little bit easier to look at and digest. Currently, we're about we've spent roughly 23% of our appropriations, which makes sense given that we're about a quarter through the year. We've collected about 21% of our revenues, which again makes sense since we're about a quarter through the year. General fund lines right up with those percentages at 23% of expenditures and 21% of revenues. So as far as looking at just the budget and the numbers and the percentages, it looks like we're on task given what was estimated and what we're actually receiving and spending. I don't know if there are any questions kind of over the basic things, or if you want me to go into more detail.
I just have a couple questions. I didn't get all the information. It all made sense. I got a couple questions. In regards to the fire levy, I'd like you to look into this. I saw the budget versus the actual expenditures from January to March of 2020.
Okay.
It looks like the fire levy, I think it's line 2901, the appropriations was 266,132. The expenditures were 394,000. Looks like it was 148% over is the reason why I saw that. Do you have
Correct.
any idea what is going on with that account?
I do actually. There is, or was now, a lease purchase agreement for, I recall there's a fire, but it was fire equipment. And that payment should not have come out of that fire levy fund. Whomever paid the bill and coded it to the wrong fund. So we'll go ahead and make an adjustment to that after all the other work is completed by LGS. I'd rather try to make all the adjustments at once and be done with them. I think that just helps out with the flow, as long as I can kind of sort of get away with it. But that's what happened to that fund.
And if I could add, the 394,000 expenditure that came out of the fire levy was for our final payment on the fire truck. And we owed like $395,000 and some odd change, and the rest was taken out of the general fund. But
Correct.
that could be reappropriated and taken care of.
Where are we at on that fire truck issue?
It's paid off. That was the last payment on it. Yep.
And I think she's talking about fire truck issue. We have two that we have issues with.
Right. I should have been more specific.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Lawsuit against the manufacturer, and our law firm is still handling that. I know they had expert witnesses in early in March to go over all the reports. So we're still working on it. I know it's costing us a pretty penny to fight this thing, but we will get something resolved with it down the road here.
I have one other question too. I was reviewing the payment listing. Got a question. I see that there's multiple village employees that have received checks for various reasons, which we don't know because it just says that there's, payment numbers or check numbers, post dates, transaction dates, vendor payee amounts, and if they're outstanding or not. And I was wondering, what's the process of checks being made out to village employees? Are there POs that are attached to these payments? I can't tell. I just see multiple names of people that, and I'm not saying that they're not legit. I'm just trying to understand, should there be POs that should have been set up for these if they're for, cleaning, or if they're paying somebody else? But I just saw multiple names on January through March payees that were Village of Woodlawn employees. So I was just concerned on the process of that.
The simple answer is yes, there should be POs for that. I will go ahead and look into those and see what they were for. and I can go ahead and give you detail on what those payments related to.
Yeah, because it was kind of hard. I mean, I just kind of went through, and if I saw some names that, you know, appeared a few times, I just kind of highlighted them. It would have been easier for me to look at if it was just for me. I mean, because I could have just sorted the data, which I'm sure you can do that as well in Excel, and try to sort it and export it like that. So you might have to go, you know, try to do some VLOOKUPs and stuff to try to see if you can resort it to get those names all together. But it just looks like something, just want to make sure that our process is tight enough that if there are employees that are getting checks, that we have the documentation attached to that, you know, that makes sense. So if we're ever audited, it makes sense to, you know, have that information. This is why this person is getting a check, because maybe a sport got canceled and their kids are in it, or, you know, whatever it is. So I just wanted to make sure. But I did take a look at that. If council wants to look at that later in their inbox to see the payments, I just looked at it and saw multiple names. Just was just a little curious, just making sure our processes are tight.
Yes. And so I'll go ahead and take a look at that as well and see what I can find for you.
And I wanted to ask you a question, like your payment listing, those are checks that were written to like Duke Energy, like Evelyn Jackson or Brent Williams. Those are checks that were written to them for services that they did for the village. Is that what that's for?
Yes, all of those are checks. The Duke Energy payments, like I said, would be for Duke Energy for our gas and electric.
Right, of course, right.
Yes.
But then I was,
the individuals
I
should
just
be.
saw names, and I guess they don't have businesses, but you just had to give it to them in their name, I guess.
Yes,
But
that would be.
they billed us for a service and then you wrote them the checks, or is that the way it was done? I don't know. You weren't, in these, I see January.
Right. Okay. Yes, and those should simply be people that perform services for the village that we have paid.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I have one last quick question, just from reviewing this report. On the right, it says status. So status would be outstanding. Correct. I guess until it's cleared. So once the check is cleared, does it turn into a C? Only because I saw when I was doing these reports, it just had, pretty much, or if it was voided out. And I was just wondering, right. Does the system ever show that these checks have cleared at some point?
It does. It shows the checks have cleared after the reconciliation process has been performed.
Okay, so that's what it is. Okay.
Yes, and actually, LGS has extended their service at no cost to us to go ahead and reconcile us up through March as well. So as soon as those reconciliation processes are done, you'll see that the checks that have cleared will have C's next to them. Anything that for some reason somebody hasn't cashed, that would retain that O.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I was just thought I would ask why, you know, when you look at 3 months back. So that makes sense because we're still not reconciled yet. So that's
still in the process, yes.
What does the letter V mean?
Void.
Void, okay.
And I think we just have, if there's no more questions on the reports, we have one more thing I asked him for. This equitable sharing program, our chief Tillman reached out in regards to 2015 and 2019. It's been unreported. It's a law enforcement account fund for equitable share program. And so he asked if our new finance director could help him to get these reports completed. So Tim, as well as Chief Tillman, have been working together. So I don't know if you want to give us a quick update on that.
Tim, you want me to give a little history first?
Yes,
please.
Okay. I received an email from Chief Tillman sometime. It was probably like late March. I can look it up. I know I forwarded some of those emails to Tim yesterday about this equitable sharing fund. It's our police law enforcement trust fund. It's for seizures, so we the village can participate in any seizures that are made. that we could file and get some of that money that goes to the county. It was brought to my attention when I received the email. I sent the chief a message back saying, what is this all about? And he goes, Jerry, we haven't filed any reports since 2014. So we haven't filed a 2015, 16, 17, 18, or 19 report, and we're in non-compliance. And he goes, if we get these reports filed, we will be in compliance. And right when I got this and looked into it, I thought, why am I going to send this out with me as the interim manager right now without a finance director? And I knew Annette was leaving, and I was like, this is kind of crazy. I'm just going to hold off. Now that Tim is on board, Tim has been working on this with the chief, and he's already made contact with them. So the Department of Justice doesn't allow the police department to do this anymore. It has to be like the chief financial officer, which would be Tim, and then the chief executive officer, which would be either the mayor or myself. And we are working on this to make sure what we can do is get all the reports filed to make sure we're in compliance. And Tim and I, not being there in 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 for Tim and part of me for 19, like, what are we going to pull together? But Tim can tell you, he knows what's in those funds, and I'll let him jump in now because thank God we have somebody who came from the state auditor's office.
Wondering why we never heard, he never said anything about it before.
I don't know. But Tim, if you want to jump in.
Is Tim still there? I don't see him.
Give him a minute. Oh, we lost him.
Tim. But anyway, I would if Tim happened to leave us for some reason, got dropped off, I will tell you that Tim and I have been working this. He already sent emails when I was in the office today. He said he sent emails to the chief. He's filled some forms out, and we're working on this to make sure we get in compliance. But Tim told me, he goes, Jerry, I can call people at the state auditor's office and say, what did we have in that fund and what was spent out of that fund each year? Then go back to those old audits and find that. And we're hoping it's going to be that simple, and file those reports to make sure we're in compliance. But I told him we're had to go do a conference call with somebody from this equitable sharing program to make sure we get everything filed and it's correct.
Very well. I say move forward on that.
We're moving forward.
On the past, let's just move forward. Let's just move forward. We didn't have to harbor.
We have Tim here now, and I'm ready to move forward.
Very well.
Is there any other questions?
Now, Jerry, is this something that's coming before council at the end of the month?
No, it shouldn't be.
Okay. All right.
I do have one thing I want to bring to your attention, though, for the council meeting the end of this month.
Yes.
I guess that's a law and a finance issue. Is we have insurance for our liability and auto through the Ohio Public Entities Pool of Ohio. As you recall, when I got here back in July of last year, I found out we didn't have insurance coverage because it expires expires April 30th.
Correct.
And when I got there in July, I found out we didn't even make our premium payment.
Okay.
So I filled out the questionnaire. I sent that to them, and I called the lady and left her voicemail earlier this week. I guess it was Monday, and said, I don't have any proposal from you yet. I need to have that number because Emily has the legislation drafted. We need to know what the dollar amount is to put it in the legislation. So
okay.
she called me back and said she was going to send it to me again. She said she sent it to me on the 15th. I looked at all my emails and I have nothing.
Okay.
So I have reached back out to her again this morning and told her I have nothing from you.
Okay.
So I'm hoping I have that. So that is, again, for our property liability and our auto coverage for the village. That number's in the $50,000 area. I can't remember exactly what it was last year.
I remember. It wasn't a cheap one, but I do recall that.
Yeah.
No,
I
it's
remember
probably been
that.
what it's been running us.
About 50-some thousand.
Very
But
well.
you will see that legislation.
No worries. Thank you.
I'm just, since Tim is no longer on, I know on his email, he says finance director requests that an ordinance be passed to make the finance director a authorized signatory on the village bank accounts. I thought that was done.
I thought.
So if I can tell you what we did,
No.
if we did a resolution putting the mayor and myself on,
Correct.
since we didn't
Okay.
have anybody. Now that
Correct.
Tim is on board,
It wasn't there yet.
Can we have only one person talk?
Sorry.
now that Tim is on board, we need to go ahead and get Tim on the signature as a signator on
Correct.
the account. Him, the mayor, and then Emily suggested maybe I just stay on as a backup.
Correct.
But
Mm-hmm.
talked about this again because of to me, the audit controls. I didn't want to be on the checking account, knowing that I'm the one that is authorizing the purchases. But Tim said, Jerry, he goes, if the state auditors see that there's a process of a department head signing off, the finance director signing off, and then if I sign off, and he goes, and if any of us write the check, we have more than one person signing off on it. He goes, we should be okay.
Very well. That's good to know.
And this is the other new business, since we're still on Tim, who's not present. On his list, it says the finance director would like to request that the village enter into a state of Ohio cooperative purchasing program. The resolution must be passed by council to enter into the program, and that there is a yearly fee of $100 with population under 25,000.
Correct.
This is likely to be beneficial to the village as the police department is in need of vehicles and that could be purchased through this program at a discounted rate.
Yes.
Also purchasing items through the program, there's bidding requirements. A template of the resolution has been included in the report. So this is the other thing that he included in the report.
See
So
that.
I thought we had.
The fee should be $100
Correct.
of doing purchasing program.
Yes, that's what,
And I will double check on that. But if we're looking at doing that, he also looked at joining Hamilton County's joint purchasing program as well. We're just trying to find a way, if we research this, to make sure we can get the state bid on these cruisers, because I don't know what we've done in the past.
I believe it was state bids.
Well, then I don't know if we've ever participated, but there's an annual fee of $100. So
Right. Right. We definitely, I think it'll be advantageous for us to get into that program, because the definitely rotation of those vehicles, I mean, the shelf life or the road life for those vehicles, we don't want to have them out there as long as we do with that one cruiser, the white one we still currently have.
Yeah.
I thought we participated in that. I thought we passed legislation to do that. Did you guys check with Emily?
I will check with Emily.
I thought we did some legislation on that. I could be wrong, but I thought we did.
those
Emily.
are the two things that I saw on his list in his absence, because he had to drop off.
I'm back if anybody needs me.
Oh, Tim's back.
Yep, I'm back.
Okay.
Tim,
Sorry about
I was
that.
just
Everything
talking
just
about
went
the two
black.
things you had on legislation.
Mhm. And Jerry,
Yeah, I went over.
check on that because I thought we did do some legislation.
And you have to forgive me, I caught some of that, but not all of it. You were reviewing the legislation?
Yeah, for the signatures and the $100 for the
Ohio joint purchasing agreement.
Yes.
purchasing program.
Yeah.
So Jerry was explaining all that.
Yes. So I believe we need to pass an ordinance to make me a signatory on the accounts.
Right.
We'll probably do that at the next meeting. The joint purchase, yep, the the joint purchasing agreement would be through the state of Ohio, and that allows us to use their purchasing program to purchase. Right now, I guess we're more or less talking about vehicles. I know Jerry and I have discussed that the police are looking to buy a couple new Ford Explorers. We should get the state of Ohio's prices on that. And because we go through their joint purchasing program, it negates the need to use a bidding process to get those vehicles.
And I told him to check with Emily because I thought we had passed some type of legislation regarding.
Check.
Okay.
Last thing I have on the agenda before new business, if there's no other questions, salaries, compensation, retained talent, police and fire employees. I just wanted to briefly discuss on, is there something we can do? I don't know if we can put it in our budget. I think they said that there was somebody else that left from the police and or fire in the last month or so.
I don't believe any numbers have changed since the last time we met, Pam, in terms of personnel.
Didn't you lose about 2 weeks ago? Didn't you lose somebody?
We've lost over, I would say in the last, say, 6 weeks, we've lost a couple firemen, and they're still recruiting and a police officer. But I will tell you that I talked to Emily about this, and she said that we have to have a pay ordinance adopted by council every year.
Right.
Understand in 2019, there was a pay ordinance put in front of council. For some reason, it was never approved.
Mm-hmm.
But the auditors want to see the pay scales every year. So I have been working with Tim and Ashley and Charlotte to check to make sure our last pay ordinance was approved was in 2018, that all those positions are still current. The rates are still current in our payroll system. And that's the ordinance I plan on presenting to council right now. And I've told the department directors, maybe sometime later in the year, if we see things turning around, we can make a pay adjustment and give these employees a pay increase. But
that's good.
That's why it wasn't passed.
Yeah, that's good.
It wasn't passed the last time. Because
at least we're trying something more.
Yeah. Right now,
because of the percentage of pay increase,
I am recommending we submit the pay ordinance to you with every position that we have, what the current rates are.
I agree.
The current rates.
That's correct. The current rates. I agree. And we can have that. Jerry, would that be available for Tuesday's meeting?
I don't know. I'm trying.
Okay.
If I can.
It's on our agenda because we need to get that passed.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like two things. I'm just kind of putting some mental notes here for me for our council meeting next week in terms of legislation. Simply, we do need to add Tim as a signatory to that. So we need to have that drafted. And would we be able, or moving forward, are we ready to move forward on presenting for full council to adopt the CPP program? Cooperative Purchasing Program?
I believe we were going to go ahead and check with Emily to make sure that resolution hadn't already been passed.
Right.
I would like to do that, yes.
I will say, we'll check with Emily, and if we don't have it, we'll present it.
No worry, that's what I'm saying. Got it. All right.
A question real quick. Tim, have you heard anything about, or Jerry, impact on the budget due to COVID-19? I thought that the governor said that the municipalities had to try to cut their budget by 20%. You are, Jerry. You all.
Yes, we got a communication from the Hamilton County Auditor's Office that made that statement as well. The governor's office is stating that everybody should try to cut budgets by 20%. Jerry and I have talked about that off and on a little bit. I think the there are a couple of things we have going for us that are positives in that this year we was the last year we had to pay on that firefighters lease purchase agreement, and that was a big chunk of money that we won't have to worry about next year. There are a couple other things I think we have going for us. The other thing I think really to look at as well will be our income tax revenues, especially the ones in April. I think that again will kind of help us tell the tale of what we can probably expect to happen going forward. But yes, that communication did come through to us as well.
Okay.
Is there anything, while we just talking about that real briefly, I certainly don't want to labor this too long, but is there anything out there, Tim, that is going to come from the state in terms of monies that I don't know if you want to call it a buyout or however you want to call it. I just been kind of reading on things where, all villages and towns are losing money. So
They are.
I don't know.
Nothing concrete has come through yet, to my knowledge. I was able to spoke with a contact at Hamilton County, and I was put onto an email list that comes from one of our lobbyists, and they forward to us, I believe it's every week now, a listing of federal grants, so we can review those and see how many of them are available to us, which things we could possibly qualify for.
Gotcha.
But I'm sure as this thing continues, more information will come out as to whether there will be any relief funds or anything established.
I gotcha.
We are tracking our expenses. The fire department is, as well as police, because if there are any FEMA grants that will be issued, we are tracking so we can get some reimbursements for stuff that we have purchased because of this.
Gotcha. Okay. Very well. Thanks, gang.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are we in new business?
Yes.
I believe so.
Business.
Okay. I got a request from a resident saying that it was possible, and I know at the council meeting we'll give updates of how the village is being affected due to the coronavirus and everything. But is there any possible way to give maybe a weekly or bi-weekly update by code red or whatever?
In terms of what, Ms. Brown?
They don't know what's going on in the village. How are we handling the situation as far as the coronavirus is concerned? What is the municipality doing? What are we doing as a village? And I know, yes, it'll be probably covered and information will be given out at the council meeting when you do the council meeting. But because everything is so up in the air and people are fidgety, they don't know what's what. Is there any way we can do maybe a bi-weekly update on those that have the code red or anything? I know people are going.
What kind of information do they want?
Just wanting to know, how are we handling? How are we being effective? How is our budget being affected? What have we done as far as services are concerned? What are we doing? How are we going to handle that situation?
I'll have Jerry, if you don't mind, I'll give you a shout tomorrow. We can talk about that. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I don't want to do is, because this is fluid, Ms. Brown, and please understand that these things change every day. In terms of the processes that we're following here in the village, we are a state entity. And so we are following the rules that have been set forth by the governor. So those rules are the same rules that we follow. I'm not for certain that I feel comfortable putting out at this time, and we've never done in the past, what our financials and all of that. I'm just not understanding what.
I don't think they're necessarily asking for
something on the.
I can't, Ms. Boyd, can you just, if you don't mind, I'm just trying to understand the question. One moment, please. Go ahead, Ms. Brown.
I don't think they're asking for drop dead numbers.
Okay.
As I'm understanding it, they just, I guess they just want to be assured, that we are following rules, guidelines, and everything, and that, we aren't ready to just fold under. How we've gotten our the service department. They've got them on a staggered work schedule and stuff like that, things like that. So they're just trying to understand. They're just wanting to know that they're not being left out. They want to be, and I lack of a better word, pampered, so to speak.
I understand that, and I understand that.
Mhm.
But again, we haven't cut any essential services to our residents. They still receive the same services prior to this pandemic. So again, my concern is that because this stuff is fluid, I might be calling with one message today and overnight something calls out again tomorrow. So that's just my concern about putting a code red out there for these fluid changes on a daily basis.
Go ahead.
Perhaps we can start to really focus on encouraging individuals to email or call with any questions, specific questions that they have. And then also continuing to encourage people to attend the committee meetings and the full council meetings in order to get information, because it does change rapidly. But I think that we can make ourselves more available so that people can ask those specific questions, because we can't really know exactly what information we should share. Is it enough information? Do people have other questions? So if people have specific questions, I would like to encourage the public to reach out and ask us those specific questions, because any report that we put out may miss a question that somebody else has. It may not be the information that they're looking for.
That's my point.
I understand what you're saying, but
That might be a good idea.
at the same time, I don't think it hurts to just let them know that, yes, we are practicing social distancing. We are, limiting our meetings. We're doing our meetings by Zoom, so forth and so on, because people can't come out now. And
did you tell them all that when they asked you?
Real detail. I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
I think we should address those at the meeting as well, at the council meeting, just monthly. Make sure that we can take a minute out for maybe mayor to just, and you have been doing that, Brian, as well, just addressing that.
Yeah. I saw something on the website. Who does the website, Jerry? I saw COVID-19 information on the website. Who does the website now, Jerry?
Well, Ashley updates our website information.
Right.
But
I did see something.
again, I mean, that could be an everyday task if we follow everything that comes from county EMA and everything else like that. I agree with what the mayor and Candace said. We can provide an update at the council meeting, but then that information we give out that night could change the next day or the following day.
Change that morning.
We're following every precaution we can. We have the municipal building.
Some people really, we're a little small village, and I know what she's talking about, and probably the population that she's talking about. They may not even use the website, but maybe they do. But like a code red call once a week or something, is that possible? Because those are the people that still have
I don't know
whatever you call them.
I don't necessarily say once a week, maybe bi-weekly.
Well,
We'll have further conversation, Jerry.
I was presented.
Can we talk about this tomorrow?
We will have further conversation about it tomorrow. There's no need to harbor on it.
I really don't know if this is a finance committee.
Yeah, I was gonna say that as well.
Thank you.
So is there any more, I think we should table this. Is there any more questions on new business in regards to finance that anybody has?
Table, what were you referring to tabling, Pam?
Start discussion about code reds, talking to the public.
Oh, okay.
COVID update.
Yeah, I think
COVID
move
update.
on, since that's not directly into finance. It's something that we should think about, but Mayor, it would be in your court as well. Since it changes so often, I think we shouldn't continue talking about that here.
I I'd like to
Any other new
thank
business on finance?
Tim and Charles for their report. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your reports. They were very detailed. Tim
You're
and
welcome.
Charles. Thank
Yeah, I would definitely agree, Tim. You taking off running just from the short period.
Yeah.
I asked you to reach out if my request was just a little bit over the top, and the next thing I know, you sent out and said done. Pretty much. So.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, jumping in and running, and the information. It's been so helpful, I think, just to everybody. And as people look at their email and have a chance to look at the report, since
They were good.
I didn't get all that information out, since it was kind of in our court this time. We usually have a little help from our clerk getting that information out, and it just didn't happen. But I think once everybody takes a look at all the reports that Tim supplied, I think happy. And I'm glad that, Tim, you're aboard, and you've given us a lot of explanation and answered a lot of questions just at the meeting that we all have had this time. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
And thank you, Jerry, because you're getting them on track. So thank you. You guys seem to be working together real well. So I appreciate that. I'm feeling comfortable. Sometimes I come away feeling tense, but I'm feeling really comfortable. And thank you, Brian.
That's a good feeling.
Yes, this has been a really good meeting with some really good information, and I know going forward it's just going to get even better. So this has been great.
Could we have a call for adjournment?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I second the emotion. I mean the motion. Thinking about
Okay.
So adjournment at 8:39.
Josh, thank you
We
very
have to vote.
much. ICRC.
Thanks,
But no,
ICRC.
hold
Josh
on,
back
hold on.
there.
We
Yes,
have to
thank you
vote
very
on
much.
that. We have to vote on